Developing right now on Morning News Now, Iran on notice as a violent crackdown on anti-government protests grows deadlier by the day. This morning, President Trump considering action and warning Iran about the consequences of retaliation.
Do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. And they won't even believe it. I have options that are so strong.
Meanwhile, here at home, mounting protests over last week's deadly shooting during an immigration operation in Minnesota. We will bring you the latest. Also developing Fed feud, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell speaking out against President Trump over a series of subpoenas issued to the Fed by the Department of Justice. The criminal investigation underway and what the president had to say. Plus, growing outbreak concerns after dozens of new measles cases are reported in South Carolina. More on the surge and what you can do to stay healthy. And feeling golden, the stars were out in Hollywood for last night's Golden Globes. We will wrap up some of the most memorable moments from the show, including some historic firsts, surprising snubs, and how it could set the tone for the rest of the awards season. None of us stayed up all night, but we watched some of it.
Exactly. So if you're a little slow this morning because you watched them, we're with you there. It's just one battle after another. Yeah. Good morning. Good to have you with us on a Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you very much for starting your week with us. We are going to begin our show in Iran, where activists say more than 500 people have been killed in the government's crackdown on protests that erupted late last month. That is according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. Now, President Trump says he is considering several options in response, including military strikes as well as non-military action. The president also said that Iran's leaders had reached out for negotiations and that a meeting was in the works.
Earlier this morning, Iran's foreign minister said the situation there was now under total control. He added Iran was, quote, ready for war, but also dialogue. We should point out an internet blackout in Iran has made it difficult for journalists and human rights groups to independently verify reports from inside the country. In a few moments, we're going to speak with Dr. Roya Rastegar, the executive director of the Iranian Diaspora Collective, a group that seeks to amplify the voices of the people of Iran. First, let's get to NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. President Trump says he's getting hourly updates on the increasingly aggressive response to protesters in Iran and weighing those potential options to respond.
Amid a deadly crackdown against anti-government protesters in Iran that human rights groups say has killed more than 500 people, President Trump overnight confirming he's weighing options for potential U.S. intervention and saying that Iran called to negotiate.
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
3 U.S. officials tell NBC News preliminary plans the president has been presented with range from potential strikes to other non-military action. Notably, the Pentagon has not yet moved major assets to the region to support possible military action. Iran is now warning that U.S. and Israeli military bases in the region could be considered legitimate targets if the U.S. launches a strike, and adding their response may not be limited to reacting after an attack.
If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. And they won't even believe it. I have options that are so strong.
Some Republican lawmakers urging President Trump to act,
embolden the protesters and scare the hell out of the regime,
while others warn of the risks of potential military action.
Sometimes it has the opposite effect. So when you bomb a country, then people tend to rally around their own flag.
The protests in Iran, initially touched off by an economic crisis, have evolved into one of the biggest challenges the regime has ever faced. Over the weekend, demonstrators in Los Angeles marching in solidarity were struck by a U-Haul truck. The FBI is now investigating.
The internet blackout in Iran is making it difficult to get a true picture of everything that's happening on the ground, and analysts and activists say the full scale of the crackdown is not yet clear. President Trump gave NBC News a brief interview last night and asked about whether a U.S. response really could be coming in the coming days. He said it could happen. Joe and Savannah.
Alice, thank you so much.
Well, let's get more analysis with Dr. Roya Rastegar. Dr. Rastegar, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. So let's just first set the stage and help us understand why what is happening in Iran is happening right now. Why are people protesting?
Yeah, so this protest started because of sharp increase in inflation. It started really because people can't eat. They cannot afford to eat. The price of eggs has gone up to close to the price of gold. But very, very, very rapidly, this protest started to grow across all 31 provinces, across multiple religions and ethnicities, and all different class levels. This is now an anti-regime protest. The people in Iran do not want reform. They don't want a different kind of Islamic Republic. They want no Islamic Republic. So that is really what all people inside of Iran right now are unifying around. They want the end of the Islamic Republic. They do not want to live under this theocratic regime. They are calling it an illegitimate government. They have suffered 47 years of repression. Iran has the highest executions in the world. They executed 2,000 people last year. Women are restricted in ways that we can't even comprehend. And, it's just not a way of living.
So, Dr. Rastegar, as we just heard there, President Trump has threatened airstrikes against Iran if the violence against protesters continues. Do you think that type of foreign intervention would be helpful? Is that something protesters would want?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Iranian people, July of this year, of 2025, almost 12 senior IRGC officials were taken out by Israeli military. And so I think there's really targeted ways that the U.S. could take out regime officials if they wanted to. The Iranian people have suffered violence at the hands of their own government for 47 years. They don't need to suffer any more violence. There needs to be no more civilian casualties. And truly, if President Trump wanted to take out this regime, he does not need to threaten massive airstrikes. He could do it in a much more sophisticated way that would result in the same thing, which is to get rid of the regime.
Dr. President Trump had also said that a meeting was in the works with Iran's leaders after they reached out to negotiate. But let's talk through that could mean, because there are two issues at hand, right? There's the violence going on in the crackdowns on these protests, but then there's also this hope for regime change that you have pointed out. How does some type of negotiation with the U.S. reach either of those goals?
Yeah, that's a very good point. President Trump has said that if the regime is violent to its own people, that there will be, consequences. I don't see how you negotiate with a terrorist regime. This is a terrorist regime. It's held its people hostage for 47 years. You can see how the people are saying that this regime does not represent them. So I don't understand why President Trump would even try to negotiate with this regime if what he's saying is that he wants to support the Iranian people.
We saw protests, of course, in Iran back in 2022 following the death in police custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. Real quick, we only have a few seconds here, but help us understand, how are things different this time around?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the regime right now is facing external pressure, and it's facing internal pressure. Also, the regime is much weaker than it was in 2022. We're living in a post-October 7th world in which many of the regime officials have been taken out. They know that they can be taken out. And also the economy has collapsed. And so people at this point have even less of something to lose than they did in 2022. And the people on the ground really want regime change. They do not want an Islamic Republic, and they're not going to stop. They're going to continue. And so I think what could be amazing right now at this point is to restore communications. They're in the middle of a 95-hour blackout at this point. All communication has been shut off by the regime. They're committing mass murders and mass killings. And now is the time for Western leaders to, really start to accept that this regime is over, to close their embassies, to freeze the regime assets, and to start to prepare for a transitional government.
Dr. Roya Rastegar, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is speaking out against the Trump administration. That's because the Justice Department just launched a new criminal investigation into the central bank's leader.
In a rare video message released by the Federal Reserve yesterday, Powell says the DOJ sent grand jury subpoenas to the Fed related to Powell's testimony in Congress last year about renovations of their headquarters in Washington. That's a sharp escalation of the ongoing tension between the Fed and President Trump, who has repeatedly attacked Powell and the central bank's other top officials over lowering interest rates.
I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure.
NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz joins us now for more on this. Megan, good morning. So, that statement right there, uncharacteristic for Powell or really anyone who's in that role. We know he's tried to avoid confrontations with President Trump in the past. So remind us, how did we get here and what else did the Fed chair have to say?
Yes, good morning. Just to set the scene here, this comes after months of public pressure from President Trump, pressure on the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell in particular to lower interest rates even further, arguing that the Federal Reserve had not gone far enough in lowering interest rates. And also the president has frequently publicly criticized Jerome Powell, calling him too late. Now, Jerome Powell, in his public statement, which, as you mentioned, was very unusual, had argued that the Justice Department saying that this was about his June testimony was a pretext, is how Powell put it, arguing that instead this was really about the Federal Reserve not following the interest rate drops that President Trump had actually wanted to see. Take a listen to what he had to say about that.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
He also said in that statement that he indicated that he was not going anywhere, saying that he would continue to do the job that the Senate had confirmed him to do, guys.
Megan, our viewers might remember an exchange between President Trump and Powell during a tour of the Fed's renovation last summer. On camera, Powell called out the president right there in front of the press over his claims that the costs of the renovations were higher than previously known. It was a clip that really went around the internet, them wearing hard hats there on the site. What is the Trump administration saying about this investigation, and does it sort of seem like that was the seeds of all this?
Yeah, so our colleague Garrett Haig actually spoke with President Trump last night, who said that he did not know anything about this, and he also argued that the Justice Department subpoenas did not have anything to do with lowering interest rates. Now, of course, as you mentioned, this all dates back for many, many months, with the president continuing to pressure the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, and that scene that had gone viral from last year as well. Now, the White House declined to comment on this, and a Justice Department spokesperson said that they would not comment on a particular case, but indicated that Attorney General Pam Bondi had said that she had directed her team to focus on issues related to taxpayer dollars. Now, I do want to note here that the Federal Reserve is funded through other means, not through taxpayer dollars.
Who I bet is talking are some politicians out there. What's some of the reaction you're hearing in Washington?
Yeah, we saw some pretty swift backlash from Democrats in particular, but I also want to point you to what Senator Tom Tillis had to say in a post to X. Now, he said he argued that he would actually oppose the confirmation of any of the president's Federal Reserve nominees until this was resolved. Take a look at what he had to say. He wrote, quote, "If there was any remaining doubt whether advisors within the Trump administration are actively pushing to end the independence of the Federal Reserve, there should now be none." Now, other Democrats as well, that was a Republican, but other Democrats too criticized Trump, calling him, quote, "a wannabe dictator." And a Democratic Senator Chris Murphy also argued that he thought it was an effort to create an autocratic state here, guys.
All right, Megan Leibowitz, thank you so much.
Well, for more on this, we are now joined by Chief Business Editor of People Inc. and editor-in-chief of Investopedia, our friend Caleb Silver. Caleb, great to have you as always. So let's talk through the interest rate sides of this. Back in 2025, we saw 3 rate cuts. What are we expecting? What did you think was on tap for this year, and how does something like this impact it?
Yeah, going into the year, we were only expecting maybe one little rate cut, another quarter-point cut. It all depends on the labor market, which, as we've seen, has been weakening. But this throws a lot into the air right now. The Fed next meets in 16 days, 6 hours and 47 minutes. I'm not counting, you're counting. But the Fed is probably not going to lower rates right now because inflation has come down to a reasonable level. They're paying attention to the labor market. And as Powell just said in his video statement, they are making decisions based on evidence about the economy, not on political pressure. So I wouldn't expect a rate cut.
Right. The Fed is supposed to be insulated from political pressure, but seeing all this drama unfold over the weekend, what do you expect the markets to do today? What's Wall Street saying about all this?
Yeah, it's not liking it one bit. If you look at futures right now, they're in the red, and we're coming off of all-time highs last week. A lot of momentum in the stock market right now, not just the big stocks, but across the stock market. Some of that is because of economic policy, but a lot of that is because the economy is continuing to grow. Right now, futures and investors don't like the fact that there could be a big mess around the Federal Reserve going into the first half of this year, at least.
Jerome Powell's term as Fed chair ends in May. President Trump said just last week he's got his replacement picked out. Any guesses on how that could impact the economy, whatever they may decide their policy is?
Well, we know the president is going to put somebody who's more dovish in, or nominate somebody who's more dovish to be the chair of the Federal Reserve, which means interest rates will probably be headed lower under the next Federal Reserve once Powell steps down in May, if not sooner. But Powell is a governor until 2028. He still has a vote on interest rates. If he remains at the Fed, that's going to be his decision, and a lot of that's going to be based on what happens with this investigation.
All right, Caleb Silver, thank you as always.
In Minneapolis, the outrage appears to be escalating over the fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by an ICE officer. The Trump administration says today it's sending in hundreds of additional officers to the city. Overnight, intense clashes erupted outside the local ICE headquarters. The White House says these extra officers are needed so ICE can do its job safely. Over the weekend, anti-ICE demonstrations spread all across the nation. NBC's Maggie Vespa is on the ground in Minneapolis with the latest. Maggie, good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's been a weekend of unrest here in Minneapolis and around the country. Last night, our team seeing dramatic clashes outside the local ICE headquarters. And it's because of scenes like this that the Trump administration is now saying it's sending in hundreds more ICE officers by the end of today to, they say, help ICE do their jobs safely. Outrage over last week's fatal shooting of Renee Good mounting nationwide, with protests in New York, D.C., Atlanta, L.A., and other cities this weekend. Top Trump officials again defending ICE officer Jonathan Ross, saying he fired in self-defense, and the vice president last week saying the officer would have full immunity. President Trump overnight saying he'll, quote, let the people define what that means, but, quote, you know what immunity means as well as I do, end quote. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey pushing back over the weekend, saying about the administration's rhetoric there is, quote, a deep mistrust because so many of the things that we are hearing are not true. This, as dramatic new video shows immigration raids continuing in the area, with arrests continuing over the weekend and residents still confronting officers. The fear and the anger here on the ground is palpable. And one more note, we reported last week that Minneapolis public schools had gone fully remote for the rest of the week. They are resuming in-person classes for students today, but offering a remote option for the next month for, quote, families who may need it. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, thank you.
Well, Trump-appointed border czar Tom Homan is weighing in on DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's allegations against the Minneapolis ICE shooting victim. Well, shortly after 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was shot and killed by an ICE officer last week, Noem described what Good did as a, quote, act of domestic terrorism without providing any evidence. Well, in an interview on Meet the Press, moderator Kristen Welker pressed Homan on those allegations, and she joins us now with some of their conversation. Kristen, good morning.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke with border czar Tom Homan about whether he believes the driver shot by an ICE officer in Minneapolis was a domestic terrorist after Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called the incident an act of domestic terrorism. Just to be clear, is anyone who protests ICE a domestic terrorist in the eyes of the administration?
I can't say that. You know, it's a case-by-case basis. But, you know, if you look up the definition of terrorism, is there violence? Is there threat of violence? based on an ideology that wants to change the way the government does what we do. Look at the definition of terrorism.
But was Secretary Noem correct to label her a domestic terrorist, Mr. Homan?
Look, we don't know what, I don't know what Secretary Noem knows and what I know. I can tell you is what they did is illegal. And if you look up this definition of terrorism, it certainly could fall within that definition if you look at the definition of terrorism.
But you don't have evidence.
Pardon me?
You don't have evidence that she's a domestic terrorist.
I don't know what Secretary has that I don't. I'm not going to judge what the Secretary says, but if you look up the definition of terrorism, it certainly can fall within that. But I think we all got to agree there was no reason for this lady to do what she did. There was no reason to be there. If you want to protest, protest, but don't actively impede and interfere, and certainly don't drive a 4,000-pound vehicle toward an officer.
You can see my full interview and a whole lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press right here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen, thank you.
We are seeing and most of all feeling above normal temps to start off the week for most of the country. Let's get a check on your morning News Now weather.
We have meteorologist Andrea Romero with us here in studio. Hi, Andrea. Good morning.
Hi, Savannah and Joe. Well, if you love winter, you're not going to be too happy today because we do have above average temperatures extending across much of the lower 48s. As we can see right now, we're expecting highs that are going to be in the 50s and the 60s, especially here in the heartland where temperatures can be over 20 degrees above average, close to 30 degrees above average in Miles City, Montana, where we're expecting a high of 60 degrees. And some of that warmth will be stretching into the northeast tomorrow, where parts like New York, Pittsburgh, highs of 46 degrees in the afternoon. And those, of course, are above average temperatures as well. However, if you do love winter, you're going to be happy later on this week. And that's because temperatures will begin to drop. We're looking at temperatures that will be in the 30s and 40s by Thursday and Friday, and we also have the possibility of some snow into the northeast. Speaking of snow, we do have a winter weather advisory downwind of Lake Ontario due to that lake effect snow that's falling in that area. It's going to be breezy, gusts up to 50 miles per hour in parts of the northeast as the Clipper system moves through across the Great Lakes. Snow will be favored across the northern part of the area with rain for most in the Midwest. And then on Wednesday, as the temperatures slowly begin to drop, we begin to see a little bit more snow, especially across the interior of the northeast. We do expect minor impacts with this system, 1 to 3 inches, mostly across parts of the Midwest into parts of the Great Lakes and even parts of New England. As far as the wind alerts, 11 million people are under wind alerts across the country, wind advisories, high wind warnings, the possibility of wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour in Southern California, parts of Montana, and like I mentioned, parts of New York State as well have those wind alerts in effect. So looking at the week ahead, it's going to be pretty much calm, not too much as far as precipitation, a little bit over parts of the Olympia region. And then we do have another storm system that's moving through, as I mentioned, possibly Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we have another one to end off the work week that could bring a little bit more snow, has a little bit more punch into the northeast.
Yeah, so we don't like these soggy showers in January.
No,
it's going to get wet. I want snow.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. It's terrible.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, spreading fast. Dozens of new measles cases reported just days into the new year. Why health experts say this outbreak could get even worse.
Up first, though, developing overnight, Venezuela releasing political prisoners more than a week after U.S. forces captured their leader. The latest next. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. President Trump plans to meet this week with Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Machado, more than a week since the U.S. captured that country's leader, Nicolas Maduro.
On Friday, President Trump met with oil executives, urging them to get to work on tapping the country's oil supply.
More, let's bring in NBC News' Courtney Cubie. So, Courtney, just over a week since Maduro was captured, President Trump has already said he doesn't think there's going to be a second strike. Where do things stand when it comes to the military?
Yeah, so we still have a lot of questions, but we do have a few more answers. Number one is exactly what you just mentioned, Joe, and that is President Trump saying that he has called off a second strike. Well, guys, it's still not really clear what the second strike would have been needed for in the first place, right? If in fact this operation was all about capturing Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and they did that, then why would you need to go in for a second strike? The president and some of those around him, his senior officials, saying that, in fact, that if Venezuela were not to cooperate, then there could be the need for more military action. But really key here is, despite the president saying that, we are not seeing a large decrease in the U.S. military footprint in the region, which leaves open the possibility that the president could change his mind again and say, look, we're going to have more military action there. What we do expect is more military action in the form of going after those alleged drug boats. We've seen about 30 of those since the early September, killing more than 100 people on those boats. And we do expect the U.S. to continue with the seizing and boarding of tankers who the U.S. considers to be stateless, who in many cases are under sanctions. In that case, it's Department of Homeland Security led, basically the U.S. Coast Guard, these elite Coast Guard forces, supported by the U.S. military. Officials telling us that they do expect even more of those. But as far as what's going on the ground in Venezuela, that seems to be turning a little bit more into the diplomatic sphere. In the fact that we are seeing now these diplomats, American diplomats, going to Venezuela. They're talking about reopening the embassy in Caracas. And what that will entail is diplomatic security, of course, but also a U.S. military presence to secure the area, to do a security assessment, and then ultimately to be there to provide that security for the diplomats and the embassy itself once it actually opens. It's not necessarily a quick process, even once the U.S. government decides that they want to reopen that embassy.
Courtney, while we have you, I do want to ask also about some news out of Syria over the weekend, this round of attacks. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, we don't talk a whole lot about strikes in Syria or about the U.S. Continuing to go after ISIS there. It's a campaign that has continued, despite the fact that we have been looking in a lot of other directions in the meantime. But what these strikes were a specific retaliation for the December 13th attack by ISIS that killed 2 U.S. service members and an American civilian interpreter. Now, that was December 13th. On December 19th, there was the first round of these strikes, this new operation that was announced that day. This is the second big wave, and it was a pretty big wave that the U.S. military struck here. It was just after noon Eastern time on Saturday. They hit 35 individual targets, more than 90 precision munitions, and we're talking about a huge number of aircraft fighter jets, drones, Reapers, MQ-9s, and notably, for the second time, the Jordanian Air Force had fighter jets up involved in this as well, guys.
Busy year across the globe so far for the U.S. military. Courtney, thank you so much.
Well, as a result of the success of the U.S. mission to capture Maduro, President Trump is ramping up pressure on Cuba. In a post to Truth Social Sunday night, the president announced that no more Venezuelan oil or money will go to the communist nation, adding that it should strike a deal with the U.S. before it's too late.
Venezuela is Cuba's biggest oil supplier, but Venezuelan port operations have been disrupted since Maduro's capture.
NBC News reporter Ed Augustin joins us now from Havana with the very latest. Ed, good morning. So yesterday, President Trump spoke about this possible deal between the U.S. and Cuba. What do we know about that?
Well, incredibly, yesterday on Air Force One, President Trump even gave us a hint of what a potential deal could look like.
One of the things I want taken care of, and one of the groups I want taken care of, are the people that came from Cuba that were forced out or left under duress, and they're great citizens of the United States right now.
So after the 1959 Cuban Revolution in the early 1960s, there were huge nationalizations of U.S. property and property owned by private Cubans. A great many of those Cubans then emigrated or fled, many of them, to the United States, particularly South Florida, where those nationalizations have always been seen as illegitimate. They've been seen as expropriations. And there are a lot of people there that want their property back. I think the other angle that's very interesting when we think of Trump and a deal is that way back, if we cast our minds back to the first time that President Trump ran for president, he was in favor of Obama's deal. He said the concept of opening with Cuba is fine. He said that he'd get a better deal than Obama. And he said, 50 years is too long, folks. But not just in word, in deed. Back in 2015, the year before he became president the first time, the Trump organization even sent executives to Cuba to look into the possibility of opening hotels and golf courses. And you know what? If you go to the property registry here in Cuba and you look at the intellectual property, at least until 2020, you know what organization was registered here in Cuba? The Trump Organization. Trump historically has shown interest in investing in Cuban real estate, and ideologically, he's not against the embargo.
So, Ed, how is Cuba responding to these latest comments by President Trump? And just what would be the immediate impact if the flow of Venezuelan oil just suddenly stops?
The Cuban government has reacted with very fierce rhetoric. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel even said in a tweet yesterday, responding to Trump's social media post that you showed, that Cuba would defend the homeland down to the last drop of blood. I think that rhetoric he's using in part reflects the fact that 32 Cubans lost their lives. These were bodyguards, counterintelligence people, and they took a whooping by the United States special operation in Venezuela, and there's lots of anger from the government about that. But I think President Díaz-Canel is also trying to rally the population. They are worried about a possible U.S. attack, and the Cuban Ministry of the Armed Forces are on high alert. In terms of what would happen if the oil gets cut from Venezuela, Cuba is highly reliant on Venezuelan oil. Around about 40% of the oil that Cuba gets comes from Venezuela. And just to give you guys a context here, most Cubans spend most of the day without power already. Just imagine how much worse that's going to get if 40% of the oil stops. The Cuban energy system is obsolete and highly reliant on thermoelectric generation. It relies on oil. And it's worth pointing out that it's the poorest, it's the most vulnerable that get hit the most. It's not the government, many of which are overweight. It's not people who receive money from Miami. It's not the growing class of business owners. It's not people like me, I've got my own generator. It's black people, it's elderly people that rely on the state rations. It's pregnant women that aren't getting the supplements that they need. It's children that used to get milk and get far less. It's the weakest and most vulnerable that are already dying in Cuban hospitals, already going hungry, that are in for even more punishment.
All right. Ed, thank you very much for your reporting here.
Turning back to domestic news, we are learning new details about the suspect arrested in the shooting deaths of an Ohio dentist and his wife. Spencer Tapey and his wife Monique were killed late last month. Now police confirm the suspect is Monique's ex-husband. He's charged with 2 counts of murder. NBC News correspondent Erin McLaughlin has the latest.
We're learning more about the man charged with murdering his ex-wife, Monique Tapey, and her husband Spencer. Michael David McKee, a Chicago-based vascular surgeon, was arrested without incident on Saturday. According to police, 10 days after the Tapeys were found shot dead in their Columbus, Ohio home.
He appears dead. His blood.
According to police, investigators located 3 shell casings at the scene. The Tapeys' 2 children, ages 4 and 1, were also found unharmed inside the house.
I can hear kids inside.
Days after the double homicide, police released this footage of a so-called person of interest seen in the area of the Tapeys' home around the time of the murders. According to court documents, investigators tracked a suspect to a vehicle which arrived prior to the homicide and left shortly after the homicide, adding they later located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and linked it to Michael McKee. Video shot by a resident shows a police officer guarding the door to McKee's luxury apartment in Chicago. A neighbor tells NBC News McKee moved into the building over the summer and kept a low profile.
He seemed like a very nice guy, just a normal person. He wasn't nervous, he wasn't jittery, he wasn't looking every which way. He looked me straight in the face and smiled when we were talking.
Court records show McKee and Monique Tapey divorced in 2017 after roughly 2 years of marriage.
Monique left the marriage and did not look back.
Phyllis Williams is close friends with Monique's mom. She was among the loved ones attending the Tapeys' funeral. The couple remembered as warm, generous, and kind.
Monique was a very beautiful soul. She and Spencer loved each other dearly, and they were soulmates.
Erin McLaughlin, NBC News.
All right, coming up on Morning News Now, cause for concern. Health experts sounding the alarm about the future of public health in America.
What I have seen in the last year has been a slow but deliberate program to discredit vaccines.
When we come back, why recent changes to health guidelines have some doctors concerned.
We We are back with growing concerns over the future of public health in the U.S., particularly for children. The Department of Health and Human Services, that's led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announced a host of major changes to formal guidelines last week, including fewer vaccine recommendations for American children and a new approach to nutrition. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson breaks down what you need to know.
A lightning rod from the start, verbal fireworks marked Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing.
I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking either of those vaccines.
11 months into his tenure as Health and Human Services Secretary, they haven't died down.
I've always promised I'm not going to take people's vaccines away from them.
Fears raised by the unprecedented change in the country's childhood vaccine schedule. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now recommending vaccines for 11 diseases, down from 18. Kennedy says it's an effort to restore public trust in vaccines, a casualty of the pandemic, pointing to declining childhood vaccination rates, such as measles, mumps, and rubella. Critics say the change just injects confusion.
Will these changes help restore public trust in vaccines?
What I have seen in the last year has been a slow but deliberate program to discredit vaccines.
Under the new guidelines, the vaccines recommended for all children include measles, mumps, rubella, polio, pertussis or whooping cough, and chickenpox. High-risk groups should also get shots for diseases like RSV, hepatitis A and B, dengue, and 2 types of bacterial meningitis.
How do parents know if their child is in a high-risk group?
That's another area where I think we still don't have enough information.
For these shots, the federal government recommends parents and health providers make the decision together, including rotavirus, COVID-19, and the flu. So far this flu season, the CDC says 17 children have died. I asked Secretary Kennedy about the change.
Given that the fact that flu cases among children are rising fairly dramatically this year, as are flu deaths, should children get the flu shot this year?
The issue is that people can get the flu shot. We're giving people a core schedule of vaccines we say everybody should get. The other vaccines are shared decision making, so you can still get them. They're still going to be insured. The problem is there is no science that supports the flu shots for children.
The CDC's own website cites studies showing the flu shot does protect children. Kennedy flipped the food pyramid upside down. Meat, cheese, and milk now getting top billing along with fruits and vegetables. The new dietary guidelines urge Americans to avoid ultra-processed foods, something applauded by many. But the doubling of protein has raised concerns.
I think there's 2 big concerns with this focus on higher protein. One is that people will immediately translate protein to meat and eat more red meat, thinking that's the most helpful choice when there are other healthier choices. And 2, that all of these highly processed foods are going to get a big boost, even though the guidelines say to avoid those foods and eat whole foods.
Ann Thompson, NBC News.
Now, the measles vaccine is still part of that updated vaccine schedule, but less than 2 weeks into 2026, dozens of new measles cases are being reported across the U.S. The majority are in South Carolina, where the state's public health department confirmed 99 new cases on Friday.
It comes as outbreaks continue to spread across the country. Last year, we saw more than 2,000 cases nationwide. That is the highest number since 1991. Well, now the U.S. is at risk of losing its official status of having eliminated the highly contagious vaccine-preventable disease.
NBC News health and medical reporter Erica Edwards joins us with more on this. Erica, good morning. So these new cases now bring South Carolina's total to 310 cases. What are officials there saying about this outbreak?
Hey, good morning, Joe, Savannah. Unfortunately, we are seeing what happens when you have a massive travel holiday right in the middle of an ongoing measles outbreak. Remember, we didn't see the first case in the Texas outbreak until late January. Just 12 days into this year, as you said, Joe, 310 cases already reported in South Carolina, more than a third of those diagnosed just last week. Now, most of those who are sickened are kids and teenagers, most of whom are unvaccinated. 200 others have had exposures, and for the next 21 days now have to be out of school and work as they monitor for symptoms symptoms. Joe, Savannah.
South Carolina is not the only state where we're seeing these new cases. Where else are we seeing this spread?
That's right. The South Carolina outbreak has actually moved into North Carolina, and health officials in Washington state alerted the public last week that there was a family from South Carolina with measles that had traveled to that state over the holidays, sparking concerns of possible spread there. The outbreak out west in Arizona and Utah continues to spread into other parts of those states. And then just last week in Ohio, a family, 3 young children near Cleveland, have also been diagnosed with measles after traveling to another state. Savannah, Joe.
Even here in New York City last week, I was at an urgent care and there was a sign hanging up that said, if you have a fever and a rash, let the front desk know. We're going to seat you in a different area. So it's clearly a concern everywhere. We should be clear, as of now, the U.S. has not lost its official elimination status, but experts warn if these outbreaks continue, we could be at risk of losing that status this year. Remind us, what is elimination status and when will it be reviewed?
Yeah, so we could lose that elimination status if there are signs of ongoing spread of a virus with the same strain for at least a year. Now, remember, just a few minutes ago, we said that the Texas outbreak started in late January. So we're close, possibly, to hitting that mark. Now, it's a World Health Organization group that actually makes that call. They've not yet said when they're going to review the U.S.'s elimination status. Joe, Savannah.
The measles is super contagious. Joe just mentioned measures being taken in medical offices, but what do officials recommend to protect yourself and slow the spread?
Stay home. If you've been exposed to measles, especially if you're unvaccinated, and know the symptoms. Measles can start with a fever, a headache, a fever of at least 104 degrees, red, watery eyes, tiny white spots in the mouth, and then that telltale splotchy red rash that usually starts on the scalp, travels down the face, the neck, and then on to the rest of the body. Guys, back to you.
Erica, thank you so much. Coming up, social media shutdown. We're going to tell you about a new ban in Australia that's forcing Meta to close more than 500,000 accounts.
And the award goes to, we will hit the red carpet for a look at last night's star-studded Golden Globes. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's get to what is making headlines on Wall Street this morning, including a more personalized AI experience from Google.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has your Money Minute. Emily, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. That's right. Google is taking its AI chatbot one step closer to checkout. The company says it's adding personalized ads and exclusive offers inside its AI shopping tools, letting advertisers target users who are preparing to buy. Google says the pilot will start with discounts and expand to other offers such as bundles and free shipping. And speaking of shopping, your next Walmart order could be coming from the sky. The retailer says it's expanding drone delivery to 150 more stores this year, working with drone operator Wing. The goal is to make aerial delivery available to more than 40 million shoppers. That's up from about 2 million today. Finally, Meta says it has shut down nearly 550,000 accounts in Australia run by users the tech giant believes are younger than 16. That's to comply with a new social media ban as concerns grow about the harms of online platforms for children. In the company's blog post, it says, since this law went into effect, a number of concerns have been raised about it potentially isolating teens and driving them to less regulated apps. Meta says it believes there's a better way forward than this ban. And guys, that was really just in the past month or so since this ban's been in effect.
Yeah, quick. All right. Thank you so much, Emily. Appreciate it. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Happy Monday. Thank you for kicking off your work week with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, the explosive coast-to-coast fallout from that deadly ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis. Protesters taking to the streets in major cities across America over the weekend. Well, in Minnesota overnight, flashbangs and tense clashes caught on camera outside a local ICE headquarters. And the Trump administration's response to it all, send in hundreds more officers hoping to quell the chaos. We've got the latest. Also this morning, a central bank shocker. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell revealing he's now the target of a federal probe. He says it's all part of an ongoing White House push to rein in interest rates. But President Trump telling NBC News he has no knowledge of any such investigation. More on the chairman's allegations and the bipartisan backlash emerging on Capitol Hill. Plus, the commander-in-chief now weighing his options on possible U.S. action against Iran. That's according to a handful of federal officials. Comes amid a violent weeks-long crackdown on protests there. Human rights groups saying so far more than 500 people have been killed. Our Richard Engel has more in a moment. And later in the hour, we're heading back to Hollywood with another whirlwind weekend of winners, losers, and, of course, surprises. It's everything you might have missed from last night's Golden Globes. As if film and TV weren't enough, now we've got podcasts and stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Everything's in there.
That's right.
All right, let's begin this hour with the growing outrage over that fatal ICE shooting in Minneapolis. Over the weekend, anti-ICE protests were held in cities all across the country, including New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. They were dubbed the ICE Out for Good demonstrations, and they came just days after an ICE agent shot and killed 37-year-old U.S. citizen Renee Nicole Good in her vehicle.
Meanwhile, in Minnesota overnight, there were intense clashes outside the local ICE headquarters. Now, the Trump administration says that because of scenes like this, they are sending in hundreds of additional officers by the end of the day today. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us from Minneapolis with the latest details. Maggie, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. This new influx of officers marking just the latest escalation on the ground here, with Minneapolis still reeling after the death of Renee Good. Meanwhile, the Trump administration vowing immigration raids here will continue, and as we're now seeing, making good on that promise as tensions soar. After a weekend of protests coast to coast, overnight, dramatic clashes outside the local ICE headquarters near Minneapolis. Federal officers deploying flashbangs in an attempt to disperse protesters.
You decided to invade our city.
This as the Trump administration vows to send in hundreds of additional immigration officers to the city by the end of today. All this days after ICE officer Jonathan Ross fatally shot 37-year-old Renee Good behind the wheel of her SUV. Whoa! The shooting and its aftermath captured on multiple cameras. Top Trump officials continuing to defend Ross.
I truly believe this officer, in his mind, thought his life was in danger, which allows him to use lethal force.
And the vice president saying last week that the ICE officer deserved absolute immunity. President Trump asked overnight how he'd define that.
Well, I'm going to let the people define it. But immunity, you know what immunity means as well as I do. But, you know, people can't be treating law enforcement that way.
Earlier on Meet the Press, the city's Democratic mayor, Jacob Frey, blasting the rhetoric.
There is deep mistrust because so many of the things that we are hearing are not true.
Make hold.
Meanwhile, dramatic new video showing immigration raids and arrests in the city continuing, and this exchange going viral.
You should get a real job.
Have y'all not learned from the past couple of days? Have you not learned?
Learned what? What's our lesson here? What do you want us to learn?
Following federal agents.
Give me my phone back. You can't take my phone.
DHS not responding to our request for comment. At the scene of the deadly shooting, a growing memorial.
I don't know how much more we can take.
Now, this morning, Minnesota authorities are continuing to demand the FBI restore the state's access to the investigation into this shooting, something that thus far the Trump administration is refusing to do. Also, last week, guys, you might remember we reported Minneapolis public schools went fully remote last week amid all of this. They are resuming in-person classes today with a remote option for the next month, quote, for families who may need it. Guys.
All right, Maggie, thank you.
In Washington, the chairman of the Federal Reserve says that he is under a federal criminal investigation focused on renovations at the Fed's headquarters. But Jerome Powell is arguing it's really part of an ongoing pressure campaign by President Trump to lower interest rates. Our NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake spoke with the president last night. He joins us now live from the White House with more. Garrett, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Powell now becomes the latest in a long string of President Trump's perceived political opponents to be investigated by his Department of Justice. Last night, the president told me he had no knowledge of any investigation into Powell, but he did seem to welcome the news, calling the Fed chair not very good at his job. This investigation of a sitting Fed chair is unprecedented, and it's already drawing bipartisan backlash. This morning, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says he's under investigation and the threat of criminal indictment by the Justice Department amid a year-long pressure campaign by President Trump to force the central bank to lower interest rates.
This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
In a phone interview with NBC News Sunday night, President Trump denied having any knowledge of an investigation or that he would use one to pressure Powell. Quote, "No, I wouldn't even think of doing it that way," the president told me. What should pressure him is the fact that rates are far too high. That's the only pressure he's got. Powell says the Federal Reserve was issued subpoenas on Friday relating to his Senate testimony last June about the Fed's multi-billion-dollar Washington headquarters renovation.
Plans have continued to evolve.
Trump has repeatedly blasted Powell over the project, saying last month,
"We're thinking about bringing a suit against Powell for incompetence."
Powell dismissing the administration's focus on the construction.
Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
The president has long flirted with firing Powell for not lowering rates enough.
If we had a Fed chairman that understood what he was doing, interest rates would be coming down too.
News of the investigation slammed by senators from both parties. Democrat Elizabeth Warren writing, quote, "Trump is abusing the authorities of the Department of Justice like a wannabe dictator." And Republican Tom Tillis vowing to, quote, "oppose the confirmation of any nominee for the Fed, including the upcoming Fed chair vacancy, until this legal matter is fully resolved." The DOJ tells NBC News it doesn't comment on specific investigations, but that they are prioritizing investigating any abuse of taxpayer dollars. We should note that the Fed is not publicly funded. This congressional opposition, too, could become problematic for the president, with Tom Tillis alone enough to bog down any potential Powell replacement in the Senate, potentially delaying the replacement of Powell almost indefinitely. Savannah, Joe?
All right, Garrett, thank you.
Well, President Trump says he's mulling several options in response to the Iranian government's crackdown on protests, including military strikes. Now, the protests were initially sparked by anger over the economy, but have now also turned political. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency says more than 500 people have been killed since the demonstrations erupted in late December. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now with the very latest. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. To describe them as having turned political is an understatement. It seems like it is reaching now a point of no return. Despite a near total internet blackout, some information and pictures are emerging from Iran, and they show a crackdown that is increasingly deadly and uprisings that are looking more like a revolution.
Anti-government activists tell NBC News morgues are filling up in Iran as security forces use live ammunition to crush the uprising. Videos show families lining up to identify bodies. A human rights group says more than 540 people have been killed, including 48 security personnel and around 10,000 detained. Activists claim the state is handing down death sentences without trials. But the protesters are not stopping, setting fires to government buildings and symbols of the regime. Some of the protesters are calling for the restoration of Iran's former monarchy, overthrown by the Islamic Revolution in 1979. President Trump says he's weighing military options against the Iranian government.
We're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options.
The Iranian government hasn't commented on the death toll and is warning that if attacked, Iran could retaliate against Israel and American bases in the Middle East.
If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. and they won't even believe it.
The government is now organizing counter rallies and declaring 3 days of mourning for security personnel and civilians killed in the violence. The uprising is triggering solidarity protests around the world, including in Los Angeles, where a U-Haul truck plowed into a crowd supporting the uprising on Sunday. No major casualties reported, the driver taken in for questioning.
President Trump says the Iranian government has reached out and apparently wants to negotiate. He said he might not wait for those talks before taking any possible military action. Savannah?
All right, Richard, thank you very much.
Let's continue this conversation with Hagar Shamali. She's the host of Oh My World on YouTube, the former spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the UN, and former NSC director for Syria and Lebanon. Hagar, always good to have you with us. So how much of a threat do you think these protests are to the Iranian government compared with others that we've seen in recent years?
Sure. Well, these are certainly stronger than the ones we've seen before. The reason why they take this element of a revolution, by the way, Richard is probably the only reporter I've seen really accurately describe what's happening on the ground, as far as I know from my Iranian activist friends, is that you have this happening at a moment where the Iranian regime is the weakest it's ever been in decades. It's following the fact that it lost all defense missile capabilities, right? So Israel and the United States literally own their skies. Their currency has crashed completely. Their behavior across the region has never been more exposed. And by the way, the currency crash is what sparked these protests in particular. And as another fact, the Iranian regime sent $1 billion to Hezbollah alone in 2025. This is something the civilians can't take anymore. But because of that regime weakness in general, the fact that its nuclear facilities were hit only 6 months ago, the fact that its defense missile capabilities, the fact that it's been humiliated on the world stage this way, to have this revolution happen at this time is what really makes it materially different.
Hagar, we mentioned President Trump is considering strikes against Iran in response to the fact that there's been this deadly crackdown on these protests. How would that help or hurt? What do you think the Iranian people think of that option?
Yeah, you know what's so fascinating is that I handled Syria for the first 2 years of the Syria crisis, and there are some similarities to the beginning and some not as well. But the fact is that one of the things that would have helped, that I fought for when I was handling Syria, was if you pursued military strikes, particularly against military infrastructure, runways, weapons depots, things of this nature that don't harm civilians in the middle of the night, it sends a very strong message to a dictator of exactly what they should be doing, right? Either you stop completely or you step down, because I'm not going to tolerate this, me, the leader of the free world. That's obviously not something President Obama had even entertained. But when Trump comes out, and he already has come out publicly, it emboldens the population to get to the street, to face the Islamic Republic, right? So on one hand, you have the fact that it bolsters the population protesting, but it scares the regime even further. I would not put much stock into the idea of negotiations. That's something Trump always said. He said that also when we struck the nuclear facilities in June. And so that's just really more a talking point.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my next question here. You've got a military option, but the president said he's reached out to Iran to negotiate and that a meeting with the country's leadership was in the works. You don't think anything can come out of that? I mean, is there any sort of possibility of a diplomatic off-ramp here?
Nope, I really don't think so. And it's not from my sources and not from my own work on the Middle East this year. There is a desire for this regime to fall, and the reason for that is because this regime is the single source of instability, not just within Iran itself, but across the entire region and subsequently around the world. So to see this regime fall will have numerous positive domino effects. And there's a lot of reason not to believe that it would be anything like Iraq, for example. Iran is a completely different scenario and completely different people. But that said, it's a common talking point of President Trump to say, negotiations are on the table. The hand is extended to you. The hand is extended if the Iranian regime completely changes, completely stops its foreign policy, completely stops its desire to enrich nuclear facilities. That's just not going to happen. That's just his talking point as I believe he prepares for some sort of strike.
All right. Hagar, always good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, turning now to a major new development in the murders of Ohio dentist Spencer Tepe and his wife Monique last month. Police have arrested a suspect in Illinois, charging him with 2 counts of murder in the deaths of the couple found shot inside their home. Well, that suspect has now been identified as Monique's ex-husband. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins us from outside the courthouse in Rockford, Illinois with the latest. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. That's right. Investigators allege Michael McKee, a vascular surgeon, drove more than 400 miles from Illinois to Ohio to carry out the double homicide. The alleged motive, unclear. This morning, we're learning more about the man charged with murdering his ex-wife, Monique Tepe, and her husband, Spencer. 39-year-old Michael David McKee was arrested Saturday. The Chicago-based vascular surgeon, set to be arraigned today, is charged with 2 counts of murder.
He appears dead. His blood.
13 days after authorities discovered the Tepes shot to death on the upper floor of their Columbus, Ohio home. Their 2 young children also inside unharmed. In Chicago Sunday, this video shared by a resident showing a police officer keeping watch outside the door of McKee's luxury apartment. A neighbor says he moved in last summer.
He wasn't nervous. He wasn't jittery. He wasn't looking every which way. He looked me straight in the face and smiled when we were talking.
According to court documents, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood surveillance. Last week, Columbus police released this video showing a so-called person of interest near the Tepes home around the time of the double homicide. According to court documents, investigators tracked a suspect to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicide and left shortly after the homicide. Adding, they later located the vehicle about an hour outside Chicago and linked it to Michael McKee. McKee and Monique Tepe divorced in 2017 after roughly 2 years of marriage. According to court records, they had no children together.
Monique left the marriage and did not look back.
Phyllis Williams is a friend of Monique's mother and attended Sunday's funeral.
This is a hole that will never be filled. It's just a horrible, horrible tragedy.
McKee's extradition hearing is scheduled for Rockford for later today, with his arraignment scheduled sometime later in Ohio. It's unclear if he has representation at this time. Savannah.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much.
We are starting this work week with some pretty unseasonably warm temperatures in some parts of the country, but don't worry if you like winter. Cooler weather is on the way.
Andrea Romero joins us with your Morning News Now weather forecast. Hey, Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah, Joe. And the winter warmth will continue for most of the country today. We are expecting temperatures across the heartland, especially to be in the 60s and 50s. That's around 10 to 20 degrees above average. This winter warmth will be spreading into the northeast tomorrow, where in New York will be close to 50 temperatures, in parts in Pennsylvania, 5 degrees above average. But don't worry if you like winter, because that Arctic plunge will hit us this week. And that's going to be later on this week, when Friday into Saturday, we're looking at temperatures in some areas that are going to be in the 20s and into the 30s. Now, speaking of winter, we do have a winter weather advisory that's in effect for parts downwind of Lake Ontario. We're expecting lingering lake effect snow in that area with breezy conditions. We do have another system that will be moving across the Great Lakes, bringing more snow to the interior, and mostly rain along the coast, along I-95. That system will be affecting that region probably Wednesday. As far as snowfall accumulations, at least we're looking at accumulations in inches and not feet, so that's good news. Meanwhile, most of the country is under high pressure. We do have some rain moving into the Pacific Northwest, and we do have some wind alerts for parts of California, near Montana, and also for the Northeast. Around 11 million people are impacted by some sort of wind alert. Now, looking ahead this week, we are starting off with those warm temperatures. We do have cooler temperatures down in the southeast, and we will be warming up in the northeast, but we are expecting that soggy weather, which we were talking about before, that we don't like to see so much rain in winter. We like to see more white stuff.
Exactly. I mean, to be clear, there's never a time I like soggy weather, but especially now it feels
exactly.
Like. Thanks, Andrea. Appreciate it.
There's more to come on this Monday edition of Morning News Now, including what Instagram users should know this morning about a concerning wave of password reset emails that hit some accounts over the weekend. Is your data actually at risk?
First, after the break, a small return to normalcy in Venezuela just over a week after President Nicolas Maduro was captured by U.S. forces. We're on the ground there with how communities in Caracas are rebuilding. Stay with us.
We are back now with a look at how life is shaping up for Venezuelans living inside the country.
People in the capital city of Caracas are starting to rebuild their homes and communities just over a week after the U.S. attacked the area and captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro.
Freelance journalist Ana Vanessa Herrera lives there in Caracas. She joins us now with more. Good morning. What are you seeing on the streets there?
Well, good morning to you too. In Caracas, people trying to recover some sense of normality after a week when their lives completely changed. The interim government of Delcy Rodriguez announced the beginning of the school year under a heavily guarded presence of the military and police, something that worries most parents have been talking to. And for the rest, people are trying to start their jobs, their daily chores, but they also feel insecure. They tell me that they don't really know what to expect. So people are trying to move on while the interim government is explaining and telling them that they should and that they can. But there's always that sense of maybe something will happen. And that is what we've seen for the past week. And it keeps happening at least today for the future, for the next week.
Anna, President Trump is expected to meet with Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Machado this week. How is that meeting and her offer to share her Nobel Peace Prize with President Trump being received there in Venezuela?
Well, this is something that she said even when she received the news, even before she fled the country to Oslo to receive the prize. And a lot of Venezuelans are supporting her. The other part of the Venezuelans who don't support her tell her that that is a prize for her struggle, for her fight to recover freedom and liberty in the country. But it's really not a huge matter around Venezuelans. The most important part there for Venezuelans is the fact that she's going to meet with President Donald Trump. And this is a very something that people have been waiting for a long time. This means that her presence is recognized and that her leadership, according to people I've talked to here on the ground, her leadership is going to be acknowledged and recognized not only for the world, but for the United States.
I also want to ask about this meeting Friday between President Trump and several oil executives. How are people in Venezuela feeling about the U.S.'s involvement in your country's oil industry?
Well, things are happening so fast for Venezuelans. It's really hard to say, and what they feel exactly. But on social media, we have seen some posts regarding the oil industry and its possible recovery, and people are very excited. Let me tell you about this. The oil industry has suffered great losses over the past years, and due to corruption and the lack of maintenance. And now people are just not only sharing, their thoughts on this matter, saying that they're hopeful the industry recovers, but also sharing the possibility of working on that industry. So Venezuela, because it is an oil industry country and it depends so much on oil, most Venezuelans are very used to work or were used to work for oil companies in the past. So many people abroad who used to work with U.S. companies and foreign companies here in Venezuela are very excited for the possible opportunity of returning and working with them again.
All right, Ana Vanessa Herrera, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us again.
We are following new developments out of the Middle East. Hamas is laying out its plans for the future of Gaza.
NBC's Matt Bodnar joins us now to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Hamas says that it will disband its current governing body once a new Palestinian leadership committee takes power. This is one of the key mandates of the U.S.-brokered peace plan, but there's not yet any timeline for when this might occur. The U.S. and Israel reserve the right to veto members of that future committee. Moving along now to Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Malaysia have moved to block Elon Musk's Grok AI system. The move comes amid growing backlash over the AI's, quote, digital undressing function, which has been used to generate sexually explicit deepfakes of women and minors. These are the first nations to ban Grok. And we'll wrap up this hour in Milan, where the 2026 Winter Olympics is set to kick off in just a few short weeks. The opening ceremony is shaping up to be a good one, with singer Andrea Bocelli now set to headline the event. Bocelli will be joined by Mariah Carey. He's taking a break from his world tour to make his Olympic appearance. Back to you guys.
That feels like the least surprising announcement humanly possible coming out of Italy.
Kind of amazing, though. I'm here for it. Thanks, Matt.
Coming up, care in the classroom going remote.
When Morning News Now returns, why a growing number of schools across America are turning to telehealth in the midst of a full-on nurse shortage. We will tell you what that looks like next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the angry phone calls some GOP senators received last week from President Trump himself.
NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz joins us with this and some other headlines from Washington. Megan, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. Let's kick things off on Capitol Hill, where a group of Republican senators were met with angry phone calls last week from President Trump. According to people familiar, the president called the GOP senators who sided with Democrats to advance the war powers measure, and he threatened those lawmakers with primary challenges. The Republicans who crossed the aisle were Senators Josh Hawley, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Todd Young. Last week's vote was procedural, and we're expecting another vote on that this week. Let's head next to a group of Democratic senators who sent letters to the CEOs of Apple and Google to ask them to remove X and the AI tool Grok from their app stores. This comes after people have been using Grok to create sexualized images without people's consent. The senators said in the letter that, quote, turning a blind eye to X's egregious behavior would make a mockery of your moderation practices. Hours after the letters were sent, X changed how Grok operates on the site, including by restricting image generation to premium subscribers. Finally, let's go to Florida, where a man who served prison time for crimes committed on the January 6th attack on the Capitol is running for local office. Adam Johnson was photographed on January 6th carrying then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's podium. Last week, on the 5th anniversary of the attack, he filed to run as a Republican for a Florida County Commission position. His campaign website features the viral image of him carrying the podium. And that's a look at what is making news in politics this morning, guys.
All right, Megan, thank you.
Well, for some students, a trip to the nurse now starts on a screen. With school nurses stretched thin nationwide, some districts are turning to technology to help fill the gaps, bringing medical care into classrooms with the click of a button. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro shows us how it's working in North Carolina.
So tell me what's going on today.
A trip to see the school nurse looks a little different these days in Greensboro, North Carolina.
How are you? I'm Lisa. I'm one of the nurse practitioners.
A nurse practitioner dials in remotely and works with an on-site certified medical assistant to check out an earache or other student complaints at Bessemer Elementary School.
Take it out. Thank you. Thank you.
The Cone telehealth program helping expand student access to health care as school nurses nationwide are spread thin. A recent survey from the National Association of School Nurses found only about 65% of public schools in the U.S. have a full-time nurse.
We're seeing a lot of school nurses leave the profession because of the working conditions, because of the burnout they're experiencing and the stress in the school setting.
School nurses also reported the lowest median salary of all nursing specialties.
Okay, did a tooth come out?
Beth Ashworth splits her time between two schools, but Bessemer has telehealth all week.
We're just going to talk a little bit while we're waiting.
Telehealth is available to see the acute child with the acute problem. For example, I've cut my finger, I need a Band-Aid. I am freer as the public health nurse to then concentrate on one of the priorities: asthma, seizures, diabetes type 1, and sickle cell are a few examples of the types of kids that I would manage in terms of their care.
The dual approach ensuring students are sufficiently treated.
Before telehealth was in place, what would it look like when a student needed care?
What that looked like on a daily basis, for the most part, is teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators stepping in to fill the gaps.
Former principal Jonathan Brooks says in many cases, it meant just sending students home.
All right.
At schools where telehealth is offered, students had better attendance, improved math scores, and higher reading proficiency, according to the county, for the 2023-24 school year. CMA Kiata James says she sees the results every day.
It's the smiles in the hallways. It's all those things that kind of let you know that you've done something to make that child or that student have a better day.
Perfect. Good job.
Technology working hand in hand with compassionate care. Valerie Castro, NBC News, Greensboro, North Carolina.
Coming up, password pandemonium plaguing some Instagram users over the weekend.
Now, what parent company Meta says was actually behind a suspicious flood of password reset emails, and whether your personal information is safe on the app this morning. That is next. Stick around. We are back now with financial headlines. Meta is clearing the air this morning after some puzzling emails were sent out to Instagram users over the weekend.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has the details with your Money Minute. Emily, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. If you were confused by Instagram's recent request to reset your password, you were not alone. An antivirus software company initially claimed that there was a data breach revealing the information of nearly 18 million Instagram accounts. However, Meta says that did not happen. The tech giant says it fixed an issue that allowed an external party to request those password reset emails for some users, but the tech giant assures people there was no breach and Instagram accounts remain secure. And the government is giving SpaceX the green light to dramatically expand its Starlink network, promising faster internet speeds. The FCC has approved the company's plan to launch 7,500 additional satellites, bringing the total in orbit to about 15,000 worldwide. The government says SpaceX must have half the new satellites operational by December 2028, with the rest by 2031. Finally, Anthropic says its chatbot Claude is launching a new HIPAA-compliant healthcare feature, allowing hospitals, doctors, and patients to use protected medical data. Consumers can also share their records from apps like Apple Health with their providers. This move comes just days after Anthropic's rival OpenAI announced similar tools, highlighting Silicon Valley's growing push to prove AI's value in healthcare. Guys, I'm very interested to see if people have trust in this and are willing to put their medical data out there.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something you should still talk to a doctor about. But
Exactly.
That's good.
Good point.
Emily. All right, well, with Wild Card Weekend out of the way, we are one step closer to Super Bowl 60 with nearly all matchups for that divisional round set in the NFL.
We're also 1 week away from the biggest game in college football. Two of the nation's top teams will go head-to-head for a chance at national championship glory.
NBC News sports reporter Rohan Nadkarni joins us now with all the latest. Rohan, good morning. Great to see you. Okay, we're going to start on the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Houston Texans will play in that final game of the first round tonight. But like what we just heard from Sam, some wild games this weekend. What surprised you?
Just how every team that had the lead in the fourth quarter of this weekend ended up losing. I think 4 of the 5 games, the team that was leading with 2 minutes to go at the 2-minute warning ended up losing. It really was no lead was safe in the NFL this weekend. And you saw the ascension of some young quarterbacks, guys like Drake May, for example, getting his first career playoff victory. Even Josh Allen having his first career game-winning playoff drive. So I would say the fact that no lead in the NFL is safe. If your team is winning at the 2-minute warning in the playoffs, it does not mean they're going to win the game.
And that's what makes the playoffs so much fun to watch. So, Rohan, we know the Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks probably thankfully enjoyed well-deserved first-round byes this weekend after ending the regular season as the league's top team. So now as we go into the next round, the divisional round, what are the matchups you're most looking forward to?
You mentioned those 2 1 seeds, Joe. I think those are going to be the 2 best games of the weekend. We have the Buffalo Bills going on the road against the Denver Broncos. This is like a classic matchup between, you have this great quarterback in Josh Allen, who is playoff tested, has been in the playoffs 7 straight years, against a Broncos team led by a young Bo Nix and a great defense. We already saw Josh Allen as an underdog take down a team on the road. Can he do it again? Is the Broncos defense good enough to go up against an MVP quarterback such as him? I think that's going to be a really exciting game. And then you have the Seahawks and the 49ers, arguably the 2 best teams in the NFL this year. The Seahawks have a ferocious defense of their own. The 49ers are like a mash unit. They're like MacGyvering wins in the NFL playoffs right now with like chewing gum and like half a yard of rope. Somehow they find a way to win. They've been an incredible story. So division rivals, that's going to be a really good matchup.
All right, now let's talk college football championship. It is officially set. We've got this blue blood program facing an absolutely shocking newcomer. Miami's going to take on Indiana, really better known for basketball, but been such a good story. This is next week's title game. Indiana comes in as the top team in the nation, but Miami can totally pull off a big upset. How do you see this one playing out?
What a fascinating matchup here. Who would have believed, Miami would be the underdog against a team like Indiana a few years ago? I think if Miami's going to pull off this upset, they have to do what they've done in the playoffs all year long, which is win in the trenches. I know it's very boring to come on here and say, hey, run the football, get behind your offensive line and run it. That's been Miami's key to success. That's how they're going to have to beat Indiana, is kind of dominating what they do on both sides of the ball in terms of their offensive, defensive line. But Indiana is a juggernaut. I think they're the best coached team in the nation by far. They're incredibly well prepared. They have a veteran team in terms of college football. They're older players, but they've just been incredibly well prepared. I mean, it looked like they knew every play Oregon was going to run in their semifinal game, so it should be a really exciting matchup.
You listed some reasons there why Indiana has been successful, but I have to say, I'm a Big Ten kid. I went to Northwestern, and Indiana was always sort of like, well, we'll win that one. What is it that Indiana has done to become this powerhouse?
Coach's story is so cool, too.
Joe, it's ashamed to say, as a fellow Northwestern alum, we now have the most losses in college football history. That was our one thing we had over Indiana. Oh. Really, what they've done is they have a coach in Kurt Signetti who has taken a lot of transfers from his previous school, James Madison. That's not a college football powerhouse as well. And I think what he's really done is instilled confidence, instilled a belief that they are going to win. They have not looked at themselves as an underdog at any point in the last 2 seasons. They have a great quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, obviously the Heisman winner. That goes a long way. They have an older team. They have a really athletic, big team. But really, I cannot stress enough the preparation level that Indiana's had the last 2 years. They're just a step ahead of every team in college football right now. And it's not that simple, but that goes such a long way to explain why they've been so dominant.
Rohan Nadkarni, fun conversation. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
All right, coming up, we are now less than a month away from the official start of the Winter Olympic Games in Milan Cortina.
And we come back, our own Hoda Kotb sits down for an exclusive interview with the newly revealed faces of Team USA's figure skating family. Their journey to gold next.
Welcome back. We have learned who is representing Team USA in one of the signature sports of the Winter Olympics. Those selections were announced yesterday after the nation's best figure skaters battled for a spot on the roster in St. Louis.
180 skaters left it all on the ice, and 16 athletes punched their tickets to Milan Cortina. The stars we all know delivered, but some of the names you might not have seen coming stole the show. NBC's Hoda Kotb was with the skaters and their families the moment their Olympic dreams became a reality.
Meet the new faces of American excellence.
Hey, hey, hey! Look what you did! I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Leading the charge, quad god Ilya Malinin, who's rewriting what is possible in the air and heading to his very first Olympic game.
You're the GOAT. Add now the title of Olympian to that list. How does that land for you?
It's such an honor, and I'm so grateful that also just following in my parents' footsteps. They were two-time Olympians as well, and I'm just so excited to go there.
Like Ilya, Andrew Torgashev was raised by Olympians and never stopped believing this moment was possible.
To call myself an Olympian is just so surreal. Like, it makes me tear up, actually. It's quite awesome.
And Maxim Naumov, who lost both of his parents in the D.C. plane crash last year, now carrying their legacy with a strength that has moved the entire skating community.
You were holding the picture of your parents. What were you saying to them from inside?
I was telling them that we did it, and we did it together.
One of the favorite words that you say right now is the word we. We're going to do this. We can make it. We're going to the Olympics. It's not just you, is it?
No. I would not be here without them in any capacity.
On the women's side, 3 current and former U.S. champions, all hoping to be the first American woman to win Olympic gold in 24 years.
I could be looking at the podium. Nobody knows, but this could be amazing. Do you think about that kind of thing?
I think it's great that it's not just one person or singular hope. I think, 3 people go at it, like someone's going to stick, I think.
Amber Glenn, Alyssa Liu, and Isabel Levito all proving that success is sweeter when it's shared.
What I have loved from the minute I watched all 3 of you is what is in between you. You guys are on display, defining sisterhood, defining family.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of normal. I feel almost weird to be praised for, I feel like,
friendship. Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that we all get along so well is because not that many people understand what it takes and understand the ups and downs of such an intense sport like we do. And I wouldn't be here without these two ladies.
For 18-year-old Isabeau, Milan feels like destiny.
And to have this Olympics in Italy, which is where your mom's from, how does all of that come together for this moment for you?
I'm excited to have the Olympics in a place where I don't feel so much as a foreigner.
Is Grandma coming?
Well, yeah. I mean, she has a 13-minute commute, that's all.
In ice dance, that's amore for Madison Chalk and Evan Bates. The 7-time national ice dance champions and married couple are hoping to add an individual gold to their team gold from Beijing.
This is your 4th Olympics? Tell me how you're feeling right now.
Just so much gratitude. Just being here and seeing our families in the audience and all of the people who have supported us. It means so much.
Do you ever think about Milan as being the last dance?
You really never know when it's going to be our last. So this season we've been treating everything with respect and care for the moment and trying not to miss any little bit of it.
We're best friends and we get to skate together every day, so why would we stop?
They're leading a deep field that's filled with first-time Olympians, Emilia Zingas and Vadim Kolasnik.
I've waited for this moment since I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Vadim, dreams come true.
Yes,
don't
I was
they?
about to say that.
And Christina Carrera and Michael Ponomarenko, whose parents are Olympic ice dance legends.
Going to the Olympics in the same sport that my parents did, it's unbelievable.
It still hasn't sunk in, to be honest.
Emily Chan and Spencer Howe making the team after a few early hiccups.
Spencer was a huge, support and help, and just mentally with the pep talks.
What was the pep talk? I want to hear it.
I think it was just my Army side of me kicking in when I said, right now, we have a job to do, and the job's not finished.
Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea may be 13 years apart, but they were perfectly in sync when they stamped their ticket to Milan.
Look at each other and we're like, yay! I think we can celebrate this now.
I can't wait to skate across those rings and achieve the lifetime goal, the 4-year-old goal that little Danny had.
Well, hello! Waiting for all of them off the ice, the people who have had a front row seat to the entire journey.
Your little girl is an Olympian.
I'm just so happy for her. She is the most resilient person I know.
It's our little girl, but it's also an amazing woman she's become.
As a father, I think this is one of the dreams as a parent, that the kid goes to the Olympic Games.
I think at this point I'm like his biggest fan.
Can you explain what it feels like to watch your daughter on the ice?
It's magical. When you see him step on the ice for the first time, it just takes your breath away. It really does.
What was it like to watch him out there get his Olympic jacket?
Probably one of the best moments of my life. I know that his parents are watching down on him, and they're incredibly proud of him, and they know what's happening. They do.
16 different paths, now united by a single dream, and 3 letters across their backs. Milan, here they come.
Team USA!
And kudos to the parents and grandparents who are key to their journeys.
Oh my gosh, so sweet to see those families.
That is going to do it for this hour. Morning News Now.
Stay with us. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.